We'll start with an image of a pet, like an animal pet, and I think how I would encourage you all to think about it is not as a lapdog or show pet, but as a working animal, so maybe a pony, like a work pony. And my point here is that pets, for some people, maybe on a more technical background, are interesting in and of themselves, but for a wider privacy audience, the reason pets are interesting is because they are tools that allow us to do things we want to do. So kind of flipping the question of what are pets, well, first let's look at what we want to achieve in the context of data sharing. There's a lot of data that organizations want to use and want to share, but they're concerned about doing so either because data protection is an actual perceived barrier, but also much wider barriers such as what will their consumers think? Is the other organization trustworthy? What if the data gets captured in transit and accessed by people who don't have authorization to do so? So that's the problem that pets can help solve. So privacy enhancing technologies are a wide set of tools. They don't actually have many technical features in common. They're kind of a broad family of computing technologies that allow security in transit, security for sharing, and also allow minimization. So that all sounds a bit broad, and I'll get into the details in a little bit. But if we think about organizations that want to share between each other, that's one set of scenarios that can be complex. There's also a set of scenarios in which one organization has data that they want to release to the public or to a smaller audience. And we also have situations in which one organization is pulling in data from multiple sources to get some kind of shared insights, global insights. And a traditional way of doing that would be to put all the data in a file and send it in an email or send it via transfer link. You might even, to have good security, you might encrypt the data before you send it and then tell the organization who you're giving it to, here's the password, here's how you decrypt it. And what privacy enhancing technologies do is they allow you to do all the types of data sharing that I've outlined already, but add layers of protection. So some of these add layers of protection for security. They make it much harder for the data to be accessed. And some of them add layers of security to minimization, meaning the party who you're sharing it with has less access to the data and only access to the insights. Pets are really a way of achieving something an organization might want to do in the context of data sharing. So the ICO is never going to say you have to use a pet, because a pet is a way to do data sharing, and the regulator doesn't tell you have to share data. So it's more that pets are very useful in context where organizations want to put out data or share it or gather it. And in that context, what we would say is if you are sharing large amounts of data, especially special category data, as part of your data protection by design requirements, by design and by default, you should look at pets. And in many cases, the existing technologies on the market for pets, homomorphic encryption, secure multi-party computation, federated learning, that we'll maybe get into a little bit later, will be the right solution for that data sharing. So you all know that the UK GDPR, there's no article that says, and you must use pets. So our position is more that in the context of your security requirements under Article 32 and data protection by design, that's where pets fit. They show that you are taking your security requirements carefully, because they actually build in security into the system.
So I guess to take a slightly different tack, they're not mandatory, but have you ever seen, does the ICO take into account in enforcement action the use of pets or the lack of pets in a fine or other action?
So yesterday on the EDPB panel, they were talking about the fact that they're moving from kind of regulator guidance phase more into an enforcement phase, and that's typically how regulators work in many areas. So guidance was put out 2 weeks ago and sets out the ICO's expectations on how pets can be used and should be used, and also hopefully provides useful tips for you all on how to actually use them. And now that these expectations are out in public and we've consulted on them extensively in the last year and a half, now we would be able to move into an enforcement phase when we're looking at breaches of a security principle, the data protection by design principle, and the data minimization principle. That's when we would look at, would a pet have solved this problem, and why didn't the organization look at one? That's not going to be appropriate for all organizations, but would definitely be part of our enforcement.